Okay, so we're diving into femininity today,
Yeah.
which I have a feeling is going to be a really interesting one,
For sure.
based on some of the ideas that you've already sent our way.
Great.
Yeah, just thinking about, all the different angles of what it means to be,
Yeah.
a truly feminine woman.
Yeah.
We're going to try to unpack that a little bit,
Hmm.
with your help, of course.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the first things that jumps out is just how much the idea of femininity has changed even over time, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, right away you realize femininity is not exactly a fixed thing. You know,
Right.
if you just think back to, say, the Victorian era,
Right.
like what was considered super feminine, then, you know, delicate, maybe even a little faint,
Right.
compared to now where there's so much emphasis on, strength and being assertive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that right there tells you it's not a simple concept.
Exactly. Yeah, and it makes you wonder about this whole idea of true femininity.
Yeah.
Like, is there even one definition?
Right? Is it like one size fits all kind of thing?
Yeah, because to me it seems more about individual expression, like how someone genuinely expresses themselves.
Totally. The interesting part is that for some people, aligning with those like traditional feminine traits,
Right.
it feels totally authentic to them.
Right.
It's just who they are.
Yeah.
But then the moment it becomes an expectation
Yeah.
or something they feel pressured to conform to,
Yeah.
that's where it can feel limiting.
Absolutely. And I think that's where those societal expectations come into play, right?
Change, yeah.
Because it's like, on one hand, you have someone who might find power and joy in embracing those qualities.
Hmm.
But then on the other hand, if society's telling them that's all they should be,
Yeah,
then it becomes something totally different.
exactly. And we get those messages about what's considered feminine,
Yeah.
right? From when we're
Mm.
kids.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's in your face.
Yeah.
But like even the toys marketed to different genders,
Yes.
that shapes how we understand femininity.
Yeah. And it makes you realize that femininity itself could be seen as just something that we create and reinforce.
Oh yeah, like a social construct.
Exactly. And yet you see people all the time who totally redefine those expectations.
Hmm.
Like, you might have someone who's leading a tech company,
Right.
and they're this powerhouse, but they also embrace traditionally feminine looks or aesthetics,
Totally.
and it feels totally natural.
It works.
Yeah. And that just shows how important individual identity is.
For sure. And that brings up a big question.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
can someone fully embrace those traits
Mm-hmm.
without feeling limited by, all the baggage that sometimes comes with them?
Right.
And I think a lot of it comes down to choice.
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Like if you're choosing it because it feels right for you,
Yeah.
that's empowering.
Totally.
But if you feel obligated to do it because
Yeah.
of societal pressure,
Right.
that's not the same.
And it seems like the meaning of femininity is constantly evolving.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, what might have been the norm a while back feels so different now.
Yeah.
There's just more acceptance of different ways of expressing it.
Mm,
Those boundaries are way more fluid.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can't forget about different cultures.
Right.
What's feminine in one place
Mm-hmm.
might be seen completely differently somewhere else.
Totally. Yeah.
So like even something like emotional reserve
Right.
can be considered feminine in some cultures,
Interesting.
while other cultures, it's more about expressing your emotions openly.
Yeah.
It really highlights that there's no one right answer.
Well, so basically what we're saying is
Yeah.
femininity is this super personal and complex thing.
Exactly.
And trying to pin down one single definition is
Yeah.
kind of pointless.
Yeah, you miss all the nuances.
Exactly.
It's not a static definition.
Yeah.
It's more like a journey, a personal one.
A personal journey.
Yeah. And that brings us to something for you to think about.
Okay.
Like what has shaped your own idea of femininity? And maybe even more important, how would you define it
Mm-hmm.
in a way that feels authentic and empowering for you,
Right.
regardless of what anyone else says?
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a great place to leave it.
Totally.
Thanks for diving in with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this was great.
It was fun.
All right, we'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.